Welcome to Aspen Leading Edge. I'm Patty Roberts from St. Mary's University School of Law, and today I have one of my fellow dean colleagues, Usha Rodrigues, the Dean and University Professor and M.E. Kilpatrick Chair of Corporate Finance and Securities Law at the University of Georgia. Go Bulldogs!
Go Dogs!
I love your little mascot. He's not so little, I guess. Have you met the Bulldog?
Oh, I have met, so there have been, because of the sad, mortality of dogs and English bulldogs in particular. I've met several UGAs, as we call them. In fact, I have pictures of my kids with various UGAs. The current UGA's name is Boom, which is pretty cute. And I have met Boom and have some pictures to prove it that are quite well treasured in our household.
That is so great. I know that UGAs and other similar mascots have like handlers, that's their whole job. Wouldn't that be the coolest job?
UGA is within the care of the Seiler family and actually plays a role in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. If you have read that book, UGA, he is a climate controlled bulldog house situation and he flies on planes and he does live an interesting life. And I think it would be pretty amazing. I'm a dog person generally. I have two dogs that I run with. Sometimes I run with the students. So I'm a dog lover generally. And yes, it would be pretty amazing to be part of that UGA family. But we all are. All of us bulldogs are part of the UGA family in some sense.
I love it. I bet he travels better than we do, but I also have two dogs and I'm a huge dog lover. So thank you for starting this podcast out in such an enjoyable way. So you are a relatively new dean, but not new at all to the School of Law's faculty. You joined the University of Georgia School of Law in fall of 2005, and then you were named holder of the chair that I mentioned in Corporate Finance and Securities Law. But then January 1st, 2025, you became dean of the law school. And so can you just share a little bit about your journey maybe to the University of Georgia School of Law, and then what prompted you to throw your hat in the ring to be the dean?
Sure. Thanks, Patty. Well, I do like to start my story where all of our stories start, with our parents. My parents are immigrants. They both were Fulbright scholars. They came to the United States with a lot of intellectual capital and not a lot of money. My father, and they came from a part of India that is colonized by the Portuguese. So my first name is Usha, which is a very common Indian name. It's Sanskrit for sunrise, because I was like a new light in my parents' life. Although
Beautiful.
there were times when I was a teenager and I'm not sure how much of a new light I was in their life, but that's a phase in one's life. Thank you. So Usha, and then my last name Rodrigues is spelled with an S at the end because it is Portuguese and not Spanish. So people can be very confused as to where I come from, or they know that I come from Goa. My parents come from Goa, a particular city in India, because of, the legacy of Portuguese colonization and how these things work. But my parents met in Philadelphia, so I was born in the birthplace of the United States, of our great democracy. And my father was an English professor at Georgetown in DC, and my mom either was at NIH, she's an MD, PhD, but she's either working at NIH or the University of Maryland's medical school. So I grew up in the suburbs of DC, lots of very well-educated parents, but no lawyers at all in the family. So I went to Georgetown, majored in English. I thought I was going to be a literature professor like my father. So I went to Wisconsin to get what I thought was a PhD and wound up deciding that wasn't for me. So I just got a master's degree. And then I worked for a year, and I'll pause and I'll say, I think that was really valuable. I did not have a glamorous job. I worked as a paralegal in a great firm in DC, but that was really good for me to have that experience. And I tell undergraduates whenever I talk to them that I advise them to work. And it doesn't have to be that you're a fancy analyst on Wall Street. If you're waiting tables, if you're doing Teach for America, I think those are really good experiences in terms of maturity and discipline, time management. And they hardly ever listen to me because they're hell bent on going to law school right away. but it was really useful for me. And then I went to the University of Virginia, which I loved and had lots of experiences that were formative, both in the classroom and outside, including serving as the editor-in-chief of the Law Review, which is a big honor. But honestly, it is also about running an organization of volunteers where every single person is the smartest kid in the room who's used to raising their hand from the back of the classroom and telling you all the reasons why that's not going to work. So it was a really good leadership challenge as well as being a great honor.
Sounds like great training for being a dean.
Honestly, it was because you have these very, very smart people who have opinions and are right. They're used to being right, and often they are right, or at least their insights are right. And you need to meld all of those insights together into a coherent whole so everyone's going in the same direction. So that was really valuable. After that, I went to clerk on the Third Circuit. I encourage all graduates to think about clerking if they can. It's just a fantastic job. And then I worked as a associate at Wilson Sonsini in corporate governance. I did a lot of M&A work, mergers and acquisitions work, a lot of both investor side and VC side and company side VC deals, that is venture capital deals. And I've left out this part of the story, but it is important. When I came to law school, I thought that I was going to be a litigator because that's what a lawyer was. Lawyers litigate, lawyers are in the courtroom, law and order. That's what I knew. And then I did well in law school, and people said, oh, well, you can write because you're an English major. Now you do well in law school, you're going to be an appellate litigator. And it took me until my third year to realize that I did not like litigation. It wasn't for me. I had already gotten that clerkship, so I did the clerkship, but then I wound up being a transactional lawyer. And that's something that is not certainly if you didn't have lawyers in the family, you might not even know that that path exists. So it's one thing that I really try to talk to students about is that there are lots of different kinds of lawyers, not just courtroom lawyers. But after a few years doing those deals, I realized I enjoyed the work, but I was mostly interested in why the law requires us to disclose this or why the deal has to be structured this way. And so that led me to write an article while I was in practice and, as they say, go on the market and apply for a position as a law professor, and brought me to the University of Georgia in 2005, where I have taught classes in contracts and corporations and upper level business classes, really built out the business law and ethics program here with, of course, a lot of help. And the business law offerings here at Georgia have grown considerably over the 20 years that I've been here. And we now have both a business law clinic helping really small entrepreneurs do the work under the supervision of a professor here. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have a corporate counsel externship where our students are working in-house in Chick-fil-A or Delta or a nonprofit hospital. And I tell this because one of the fun events that we put on just a couple of months ago was our first corporate counsel event where Mercedes-Benz hosted it, and we brought in alums who are in-house at 55 different corporations around the country, and they interacted with our students. And that was really a meaningful event for me because I saw a lot of former students. And I always say if I hadn't gone into academia, I probably would have gone in-house somewhere where I could be a part of an organization that I believe in. And that's what wound up happening when I became a professor here at UGA and now a dean.
What an exciting corporate counsel event. That sounds huge. And what an honor for the students to be able to be involved in that and meet all those in-house counsel attorneys. So you decided to be an internal candidate for the deanship. You followed a very successful dean. And what prompted you to throw your hat in?
Well, I had leadership experience, not just as editor-in-chief, but honestly, not that much. When you're a junior associate, you're not really a leader. As a clerk, you're not a leader. And as a professor, you're teaching your classes. Certainly you have control over your classroom. But I had a few times where I was associate dean for research here in the law school. And then I had the opportunity to serve as the interim vice provost for academic affairs, which is a position at not the law school, but at the bigger UGA. And although it was an interim role, I was in it for 14 months, serving basically as the deputy to the provost, which is the number two position at the University of Georgia. So I got to really work with a variety of deans in that context. And I had also done some leadership development, quite frankly, programs along the way. And those were very beneficial to me in thinking about myself and seeing myself as a leader. I consider myself to be an introvert, and I need time to process between meetings and events. And I realized through these experiences and through talking about leadership that there are lots of different kinds of leaders and that there's a place for introverts. Certainly, academia is a place that is relatively welcoming of introverts. There are a lot of us. And that I could see a way for myself to be successful in the role. I also talked with my family. I have three children. I have a husband, two dogs, and three children. They take different priorities. It varies as to who's in the top priority position, depending on the hour sometimes. And I spoke with them, and it was important to me that they be in a place where it made sense for our whole family.
Well, that's great. I'm very glad they supported your transition into the deanship. And very interesting about the interim work in the provost's office. I'm sure that helped a lot. So very exciting. So you're coming up on 1 year in this position. Oh, I did want to mention, you mentioned you're an introvert, and I consider myself actually an extroverted introvert, but I very much I don't gain the energy from the interactions. Like you, I need kind of time to reflect and build that energy back up. But I wonder how many of us who are deans are actually introverts. And I just want to people out there to know just because you're an introvert, you can still be a dean and be very effective. So that's important. And I'm glad you shared that. So now you've been in a dean role for almost a year, since it was January of last year that you started, or of this year that you started. And you have the benefit of tremendous number of years being a faculty member and research dean there. So what is your vision for the law school's growth and development under your tenure as dean?
So we are redefining what it means to be a great national public law school, one that matches excellence with access. And we really lean into both of those, excellence and access. Our tagline is prepare, connect, lead. We are preparing well-rounded graduates. That's really important. I'll probably talk a little more about that. We connect them with opportunities where they will succeed and thrive. And we do expect them to become leaders in their profession and in their communities. And it's something that is in many ways has always been the case for Georgia lawyers when I talk about this, emphasizing well-rounded graduates who certainly are smart and capable, know the law, can do the work. That is important. As important is for them to be able to connect with clients, to work together in a team, to be leaders. Those sorts of qualities really resonate because that has typically been our brand. That has been what we do. And in many ways, for a long time, I feel like the University of Georgia's School of Law was maybe not so well kept secret, but something of a secret because so many of our graduates stayed in the state. Although there were, of course, exceptions. We had former Secretary of State Dean Rusk come and be on the faculty. We have a center named for him, and I've talked to graduates who were mentees of his and went on to DC and to careers in trade that took them to DC, New York, and internationally. But increasingly, we are pulling from across the United States and sending our graduates across the United States. So in this, not quite my first year of deaning, I've had, of course, spent lots of time in Atlanta, also Savannah, Columbus, other cities within Georgia. But I've also been to DC twice and New York and Philadelphia and Houston and Dallas and LA and San Francisco. There's just a whole lot of our alums across the country. And one blessing that we have is that our students really tend to enjoy their 3 years here. We have many graduates who are more loyal to their law school than to their undergrad, which I know is rare and speaks to how much of a community we have at Georgia. Those happy students translate into almost rabidly loyal alums. The Houston alums are eager for us to send more graduates their way. The New York alums, the DC alums, our Charlotte and North Carolina alums are all eager for more of our graduates to come that way. So that's the vision, and I'm happy to talk a little more about it.
I'd love for you to do so and also to talk about some of the changes that you're making in admissions.
Sure. Okay. So, in terms of admissions, most law schools that have undergraduates associated with the law schools have for years, with the ABA, been allowed to admit a portion of their class without taking the LSAT. Those admits need to have a 3.5 or higher. So, for 10 years, we've admitted University of Georgia undergrad students who have a 3.5 or higher and do not take the LSAT. They don't take the LSAT, but they have scored 85% or higher on the SAT or the ACT. And we have tracked those students. They've done very well alongside our traditional admits. This year, and in some sense, I probably shouldn't talk about this because the window is closed for this year, but we offer the same opportunity to students from USG schools. So the University System of Georgia, the state schools in Georgia, which includes Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Georgia Southern, Kennesaw. We feel like the state of Georgia has invested quite a bit in higher education, and we're part of that system and want to support that system. So it's the same exact criteria, the 3.5, the 85% or higher on the SAT or ACT, but it's broadened. And the idea is you apply by October 1st, you have a decision by October 15th. And that allows us, we think, to serve the state. Also, of course, we are pulling nationally, but to serve and support the state. So that has been exciting. There was a lot of excitement around that opportunity for not just UGA students, but other students. In terms of overall, I talked about excellence and access. Admissions they're just increasingly competitive. We've seen an uptick in applications over the past few years. Our median LSAT last year was a 169, and our median GPA was a 392. These are kinds of numbers.
Those are big numbers. Yeah.
They are. They're the kinds of numbers when I talk about them at alumni events, the alums always say, oh, well, I couldn't get into the law school with these kinds of numbers. And then they also say, well, you're making my degree worth more. And if they don't say that, then I say that. But it is a historically high, we just have very high caliber students. And increasingly, we are looking to make sure that we are getting well-rounded students that have some of those other experiences, like work experience, either in college or after college, or, were they on a sports team? Did they do something that indicates some of that well-rounded holistic review that we're looking at? I'll talk some numbers. We are ranked 22 under the US News. Our ultimate bar passage rate for the class of 22 was 98.95%, and 95% of last year's class was employed in 10 months after graduation. So we feel very good about where we are. Another number I mentioned, clerking, was that we're number 10 for federal judicial clerkships. It's a very high caliber school. We are an ambitious school that we are proud of the kinds of graduates we produce and the success that they enjoy.
Well, that's all very impressive. I'm sure that you are. I wonder, we've had increases in applications this year and last year, significant ones nationally. I was just curious, as a small private religious school, if you find that your applications are particularly high because you have SEC football.
Certainly at both the undergrad and the law school level, we do see an uptick. We were back-to-back national champions not so long ago, not last year. We were looking for the repeat, as they say. That did not happen. But we're very proud of our back-to-back, and the admissions uptick is definitely there. Football is a big part of the culture at Georgia. And I'll tell you, I told you my dad taught English at Georgetown. I grew up watching college basketball. I played soccer, only JV soccer, but I played soccer, and I watched a lot of college basketball. This is dating myself, but I watched during the Patrick Ewing era. I was in college for Alonzo Mourning, John Thompson was the coach, that sort of college basketball scene. And I really did not understand the game of football when I got here. It is confusing with the downs and things move around, and it's not that clean goals moving from side to side basketball, soccer situation. But I have come to understand it and come to love it. And it is, if you haven't been to Athens, Georgia, it is a fantastic college town. Just gorgeous. The weather is good. The town has lots of charm. I live in a house built in 1910. It's a really great place. So Athens, Georgia is a wonderful college town. And if you don't like football, then it's only 6 Saturdays a year, but the town shuts down and there is a party and people, this stadium, Sanford Stadium, 100,000 people will come together. There's tailgates beforehand. It is a really good time and it binds the community together, and it's really a beautiful thing. I mean, I can't there if I'm wearing Georgia gear and I'm walking around, sure, in Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport, but also in airports around the country, if there's someone, if I'm wearing some Georgia attire that is going to say to me, "Go Dogs," and my response is, "Go Dogs," and that community is really attractive. It's really attractive to undergrads and it's really attractive to law students. So I really appreciate it.
That sounds like a lot of fun. So even the law students will take time out for those Saturdays, those 6 Saturdays?
Yes, it depends. And some of the law students will say to me, the 1Ls will say to me so earnestly, "Oh yes, I saw one last weekend at a tailgate. Dean Rodriguez, I'm just taking a few hours now, but then I'm going to study during the game." And I sort of said, it's the Texas game. I think you can take some time off and go to this game. This is a big game. But yes, it's definitely a work hard, play hard kind of place. And we really treasure that at the law school.
Fantastic. So as you finish your first year in January, you celebrate the anniversary of the first year of your deanship. Looking back, what are you most excited about that has happened at the law school this last year? And what are you most looking forward to in the coming year?
Well, I'll say the thing that I appreciate the most is that we are a school that is not just about excellence, but also about access. And we were named the best value school for 5 of the past 8 years. We're a school whose tuition is remarkably low for where we sit. And we're very, very proud of that. And I'm always excited about that. We have the lowest tuition of the top 25 schools. We have scholarships, quarter scholarships available for all of our first gen students and also all of our veterans. And we have a lot of students, 52% for last year, that did not borrow at all. And the thing that I'm proud of, I think, more than excited about, is just that our students are going to top law firms in Atlanta, in DC, in New York, in California. They're also able to be public defenders in rural Georgia, in Valdosta, in Tifton, in these small communities, or of course in New Hampshire or wherever they choose to go. And that ability for us to wed excellence and access is something that is quite unique for us. So that's something that I appreciate, honestly, more and more every day as I go out and talk to alums. In terms of excited about new things, we are in a really, I inherited, as you said, I've inherited a very strong ship. So we're relatively cautious about change because we're in such good shape. We have an initiative in sports law. I think that's an area where we can really grow. We've hired a director of sports law. Of course, the SEC, not just football, but basketball, soccer, track and field, swimming. We have a lot of areas of excellence in sports, and Atlanta is a great sports town. We're talking about in-house counsel. One of my former students is in-house at the Atlanta Braves. We have connections at all of the professional teams in
Oh,
Atlanta.
fun. Yeah.
It's super fun. I'll tell you, I went to a game at the one of the suites that he hosted, and it's just really fun. The Braves didn't have a great season, but I we sure had a. I brought my 12-year-old son and 15-year-old daughter, and we sure had a good time. So we see some real opportunities for growth in the area of sports law, moving towards either a certificate or a master's in the studies of law with an emphasis in sports law and NIL. Of course, that's an area of tremendous promise and growth overall. So that's something that I am excited about. Besides all the corporate counsel stuff, which is, of course, something that I love.
Terrific. Well, before we conclude, can you share with me what your predictions are for the future of legal education in the coming decade?
Well, of course, I have to say those two letters we haven't mentioned so far, and that is AI. AI is here, and it's been a part of a lot of conversations. I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. I'm not even sure what's going to happen in 3 years, but I do know that AI will be a part of it and will be changing. The conclusion over time, and speaking with a lot of alums, judges, lawyers, is that somewhat paradoxically, as AI becomes better and better, and it will get better and better as a tool, the paradox is that the soft skills, that well-rounded graduate will become more important because the tool will allow a lot of the sort of lower level legal thinking to be done quickly and efficiently. But those critical thinking skills, those analytical skills, so that we know how to use the tool, those higher order legal thinking, those skills will be more important, as will the ability to communicate and translate to the lay person whatever AI is spitting out. And to be able to listen to, so of course, the classic law school exam is a fact pattern where all these horrible things happen. And a law school exam is not a fun experience for a student. But I tell them, I used to tell my contract students, look, this actually is the practice of law, in that a client comes into your office and doesn't say, I think I have a cause of action because there wasn't consideration, or maybe there was a bargaining impropriety, or, whatever. They just say, here's what happened to me. And you have to spot the issues. So that skill, that ability to have someone walk into your office and tell you a story, and for you to pick out what are the legal questions, maybe you'll use AI to help with some research and some drafting, but you're the one as the lawyer who needs to be able to have that translating function. So I predict that those sorts of skills will become more and more valuable, and that successful lawyers and successful law schools will be the ones who will be able to effectively communicate that.
Well, thank you so much, Dean Rodrigues, for spending some time with us, telling us about the very cool things happening at the University of Georgia School of Law. Thank you again for talking with us about the University of Georgia School of Law and your journey to the dean position. For those who enjoyed this conversation, I hope you will listen to additional episodes of the Aspen Leading Edge podcast on their webpage or on your favorite podcast channels. Thank you.
Thank you.